Hello, this is Let's Talk About It show, and today we talk about a very important topic that many of our viewers right now curious about how to, and many of our viewers are doing every day, but we want to share more of our stories of people from all around the world, to make sure that society understands and that the world changes towards better acceptance and better opportunities. Our today's guest is Dr. Leona Nasser, and she will be sharing with us how you can achieve full potential all while living with an invisible disabilities. Hello, Dr. Nasser. How are you?
Hello, good evening. How are you, Lucy?
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Tell us about why is this topic is so close to you?
Well, this topic is very close to me because it's something I have lived with for a long time. And despite all of the challenges, it did not define my life. It's something I coped with, I adapted to, and with all that coping and adaptation, I still accomplished all of my plans and reached all of the goals I have set to myself at the beginning of the journey.
It is impressive. And I know many viewers want to know where to start. Well, when you're facing the change, like such a drastic change, when you have to deal with really debilitating disease, and you still want to do this and that and go out with friends and have fun time with family and many other things.
Exactly. So I would start briefly talking about how I was diagnosed, and the journey I have went through from diagnosis to get treatment and, everything that came afterwards. So it was back in 2008 when I had traveled to the Gulf to work as a teacher. And that's when I started seeing the first symptoms of this inflammatory bowel disease named Crohn's disease, which is an incurable chronic disease. Harsh symptoms that, I had not experienced before. I went to specialists, gastroenterologists, but in the Middle East, there was not a lot of knowledge about IBD or inflammatory bowel diseases. So I went undiagnosed for 2 years. Not until I decided to travel to UK, to London, back in 2011. That's where I got the proper tests and colonoscopies, and I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Then I started the medication. At that time, the symptoms were really, really severe. Abdominal pain, continuous diarrhea, bleeding, joint pain, because this disease does not only affect locally the GI tract, but it could spread throughout the body and affect other organs. So it was definitely very hard for me to adjust to this new condition, and having traveled to a different country to fulfill a duty of being a teacher. Having to get up early in the morning, go to the school, standing up the whole day and dealing with the teaching tasks of working from home, outside of the home, preparing for her student. It was very challenging for me at that time, and especially when I was not knowing what's going on with me. So then when I got diagnosed and we started the treatment, it was not completely controlling the symptoms, but it was a little bit milder than before. It was not until I traveled to Qatar after 5 years, traveling from Muscat to Qatar, then the symptoms got even more severe because this disease is progressive. So it went to a different stage, to another progressive stage, where I ended up in the ER room, not being able to eat, drink. Everything was going into waste, throwing up, continuous diarrhea. And I had lost so much weight. So we decided, me and the gastroenterologist, to start a biological treatment, which is a very strong treatment. I used to take 1 day off work to go to the hospital, get the infusion over a few hours, and then rest for that day to come back and manage teaching and being the head of department in the other role. It was also more responsibilities. And with these kind of diseases, more pressure and more stress can aggravate the situation. But that did not interfere with my ambition and with my, sense of duty. I used to maybe sometimes have bad days or bad nights, but I just get up in the morning, think from a different perspective, saying this disease is not gonna take the best out of me. I'm going to get over that part, get ready, go to school, be with students and with colleagues. And, I'm not going to let this disease dictate the way I live. I must control it myself. So then it was that perspective that made me not give up. And at the same point, I was not truly falling behind my duties and tasks. I was truly ahead of everything, because I know on the good days I could do too much, but on certain days I couldn't do a lot. And sometimes I had to call off. Sometimes I had to be late to work. So I was managing and trying to do everything ahead of time to just meet all deadlines and stay, according to what I am expected to do as an employee. Then afterwards, I started writing or working on my first book. I turned my manuscript in 2017. And the year before, I also was licensed as an international trainer and coach in leadership skills and presentation skills, as well as multiple intelligences consultant. Then I was working on my first book in 2017, but it did not get published until 2021. During that phase of my life, I had left my job. I started working on my own as a coach, and I decided to dedicate my coaching to those who are living with IBD diseases. And I organized a program named Holistic IBD Support Coaching Program to support those who are living with IBD diseases such as Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. And then I started advocating for these patients and getting in touch with them, doing certain events to make people more aware of these diseases and truly remove that stigma around the disease, because it is at some point a little bit embarrassing to talk about the symptoms and the personal life that you have to cope living with a certain disease. Then a few months ago, I truly decided to, widen the spectrum of the program and include more of people who do not truly live with any disease. Just make it as a holistic health coaching program, working on balancing physical, mental, social, spiritual, emotional health for anyone who wants to achieve well-being and reach their fullest and live life to the best that they could. So I expanded the program, and I published my second book last month, which also has some of the theme of the program and what I have been going through all that time, building a life of resilience, that you can face challenges that won't stop you from moving forward and perceiving the reality from a different perspective. Sometimes the problem is not a problem, but what the problem is the way we perceive the problem. So once we perceive that problem with a positive attitude, looking at the advantages, disadvantages, positive and negative, we can recognize that all hardships have certain reliefs, even either within them or afterwards. So with that perception, whatever a problem I have faced, whatever challenges I have faced throughout this journey, it's made me become a stronger person, someone who does not give up so quickly or do not give up at all, and perceive reality from a totally different perspective. Definitely, it is a transformative journey to cope with all of the circumstances and come up to be that person who is not defined by certain invisible disease where you look really so good, but you live a trauma behind the scenes just because of the devastating symptoms and the ongoing, symptoms of diarrhea, bleeding, and all of the other, symptoms.
Well, that's really fascinating from the standpoint that how you're able to rebound from something that might be terribly, I don't know, maybe debilitating in many ways to other people that they have to stop and give up with their life. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, Doctor, that Netflix has a series coming out, I believe this week, about, they said millions of people around the world have undiagnosed hidden diseases. I did not know that. It surprised me. And New York Times has an article every week on the same subject. So to hear you talk about this make me more aware now of people that have certain issues, if you will, that I'm just not sensitive to.
Exactly. Awareness, that's the key. That's what you're saying. We are not aware of a lot of diseases that manifest one way or another. And with my disease, in the beginning, I didn't have a clue what was going on with me. I was not aware of what IBD patients go through. So going through that experience made me understand these diseases and a lot of other diseases, as you're saying, diseases that we might not be aware of, just because there is not much, media talk about these specific diseases, or there's not much education. So the aim of my program was to educate and raise awareness, because I knew from myself, and from everyone who was around me, it was even hard to comprehend that and explain to family. And still until now, sometimes I find it hard to explain why I do things in a certain way and why do I feel, in a certain, why I would be in a certain mood for doing certain things. Just because it is very hard to explain for someone who's not living the condition, what is it you're going through? And even if they're living with you and living on a daily basis, sometimes it's hard to comprehend every single part of that, struggle or conflict.
Your family must be immensely proud of you. How courageous, you don't mind my saying so, but where did you get this? Was there any mentor, anyone in your life that you looked at and said, I know I can pick myself up today? Who inspired you?
Yeah, well, now we're going to get to the religious part here, the spiritual part, because definitely the spiritual part has played a huge role in my life, uplifted my soul above the diseased body, made me have that energy to push the diseased body as much as I could, just to achieve what I have aspired to. And that comes from my faith. I have an, Islamic faith. I'm a Muslim. So a prayer, asking God to give me the strength to cope with everything that I'm coping with on a daily basis, that have given me the spiritual energy to uplift my soul above this physical disability at some point because of the interference with my daily life. So the spiritual power, the spiritual energy that I have truly generated from spiritual practices, such as prayer, fasting. And I do a lot of fasting with this condition just because intermittent fasting helps a lot to cope with inflammation of the colon. Taking care of my diet, eating healthy diet, sticking to a healthy diet that goes with that certain condition. All that have come into play, the physical, spiritual, mental, emotional. But as you said, the power above all of that was the spiritual one. That was the engine that have generated that energy to push the physical, emotional, mental, and social.
Author Stephen Covey says that we are spiritual beings on a human journey.
I use that quote a lot. Yeah, it's very, very true. I truly believe in that. We might not know it just because we get too much involved in the physical body, taking care of our physical body. We at some point neglect the importance of our souls and, our spiritual being, because that's who we are. We are manifested in these bodies, but deep down we are these souls, these spirits that manifest in that specific shape, physical shape, or confinement, I want to say.
Now you have me thinking a little bit more, wondering if maybe all people somehow being spiritual beings, if maybe they are speaking or crying out to be heard spiritually and understand it as well.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. A lot of people turn to a higher power. At some point, we are weak. We are weak human beings. We think we are so strong, but you could see that just a little virus that could hardly be seen under the microscope can paralyze us at some point. So we are weak in that sense, in the physical sense. But what makes us strong is that spiritual power where we connect with a power higher than ourselves that truly pull us from all that weakness and allow us to cope and aspire. And definitely we want to become more resilient and more tolerant and adaptable. And believe it or not, if we have not gone through all that hardship at some point, we would have not achieved our full potential. Sometimes for certain people, they had to go that path of hardship. At that time, it would be very hard and very difficult. And at some point, we might say, why? Why is all that happening to me? But then at some point, we recognize we had to go that path. We had to go that route. Because for me specifically, to reach that full potential, I had to go through all these hardships and keep my faith and, keep my connection with the higher power to pull me up to where I should aspire and to reach my full potential.
Now, with all due respect, you're reminding me of Mother Teresa.
That's great.
Thank you for sharing, Dr. Nasser. I think your story and strong example of what a person can achieve, no matter what the circumstances are, is truly inspiring to all our viewers. I have one more question. What will be your message to those of our viewers who are still trying to learn what does it mean of living with invisible disability, or what also called dynamic disability? What will be your message? How to be more understanding and more patient and more open?
Exactly. Patience is it's a key. I was patient to begin with, but I grew much more patient with having to struggle on a long term. That builds a lot of patience and resilience and empowerment. So I do tell all of these who are living with, whether it's a visible or invisible disability, don't give up. No matter how hard things might get, at some point there is a relief at the end. And through that path, through this hardship, you will discover yourself at some point. You discover your strengths, your weaknesses, and you will work on your improvement and personal growth. If you perceive these hardships as an opportunity to build yourself, grow physically, emotionally, spiritually, socially, if you perceive all these hardships as an opportunity to grow and not a challenge to give up and, isolate yourself, you will succeed. You will reach all your goals. You will prosper and reach your full potential, becoming more resilient and more insistent on what you want to do in the future. So it is a matter, as you said, of patience, acceptance to begin with. Once you accept your limitations, if you accept that there are things I can do, there are things that I cannot, but I can still, there is a saying that you don't limit your challenges, challenge your limits. So we don't want to limit ourselves by just our physical disability or any other disability, because there is always room for improvement. There is always room for growth, for building resilience and allowing us to cope in order to reach our full potential and face certain fears. At some point there are fears of facing who we are. So sometimes these hardships allow us to confront ourselves, face our fears, and become even much stronger than before, more resilient. As I think you were surprised where I got this power and this energy, and how courageous I was in overcoming all of that. I think that is the reason behind all of this. It's the experience that we go through, going through all that hardship, make us more of a person who will take anything that comes to them and adapt to anything that they might confront with, facing their fears and their struggles and knowing their strengths and working to improve their weaknesses.
That's very, very good message.
I'm glad we had you here today.
Thank you for joining. Our dear viewers, that was Dr. Leona Nasser joining us from Lebanon today. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Nasser.
Thank you.